Hey, thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. It's Dr. Homebrew. We are back here with another episode. And of course, we are back here with our close personal friend, Colin, who I think is now third chair or something like that. Because he's
It's his
Been here a few
67th time on the show.
fourth chair, I guess. Yeah, what's going on, Colin? Welcome back, dude.
Just another day.
There
Appreciate
go,
you having
man.
me, guys.
You,
Yeah,
you were
well-
totally the hypochondriac at this show at this point.
Oh man,
Your checks keep cashing, so we keep having you on. That's basically
you
where we're
go.
at right now in our careers. We're just like, oh, here we go. Before we get to your beers, though, I do want to thank 5-Star Chemicals. Go to 5starchemicals.com and learn about the best ways to make your home brew better, which is to clean it and to sanitize your equipment and do all that kind of fun stuff. And you do that with 5-Star Chemicals. You don't do it with anything else because anything else sucks. That's just what it is. That's my opinion. They're not paying me to say that, but you listen to me because I know exactly what I'm doing. I've won multiple award for home brews. And
word.
well, I got one and then I cut it in like several, pieces. Anyway, 5-Star Chemicals, 5starchemicals.com. They help keep the show on the air, and we really appreciate them. They're big believers in what we're doing, and we believe in what they're doing, which is sanitizing and cleaning, but in the opposite order.
It's really weird to have somebody believe in me or us. So I think that's great. And I appreciate 5-Star because, they keep me from, whatever.
Yeah, for keeping you from whatever. That's absolutely right.
I still remember the day that JP called me at my home and said, "You are now officially co-host for a show that is sponsored by 5-Star Chemicals," and I was just like, "Wow!" I mean, you couldn't ask for a better sponsor.
Absolutely, especially not for this show.
Because I use
it
all the.
It is perfect. Yeah, it is perfect. We were kvetching a little bit before the show started about there's not a local, but it's a Bay Area brewery who's making a lager for the San Jose Earthquakes, like one of the players or whatever, MLS, and it's a hazy lager, and it just makes me mad, man. My back is all sweaty, and I just, you know what I mean? Like I already know either it's the pasta or that it's undigested still sitting like the car I'm making, or I don't know. I can't get over it. It has no head at all. It's flat as the earth. And
you didn't tell us
just,
that was for the Earthquakes, and it was like a special beer for one of the players or something.
Maybe it's a themed beer, like they shook the beer up while it was fermenting.
That's right. Yeah. Earthquake. Anyway, whatever.
They had Ronaldo come in and sing to it or some shit.
That is just sick and wrong, I have to say.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Hopefully, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say anymore. Hopefully the state of craft beer sort of picks itself up, man. Let's go a little bit. Let's stop making it cloudy because we want to. Let's make beer I don't know, whatever. Colin, what beer do you have for us? Speaking of beer we want to drink.
Well, I called it a white IPA. So
Tired. Okay. A white IPA. What is a white IPA, my friend?
that's a good question.
All right. Is that like an actual style?
It is. I forget what category, but it is a legit
You
one.
brewed the thing and you don't even know why it's called a white IPA.
21B.
Specialty.
Why is it called a white IPA, Colin?
So if my interpretation of, so I initially read it had one, but talking to people, I think I was wrong in my interpretation. I think it's basically supposed to be a Belgian wit, but way hoppier, kind of an IPA Belgian wit combination.
So is that your interpretation or was that
No.
what other people have told you? Okay. No. What was your interpretation?
Well, I'll let you guys judge it and then
Okay.
tell you why I entered it in the way I did.
Okay. I dry hopped with cocaine. Very expensive beer, and I would like some of it back if you don't mind.
This should be an interesting. It'd be fun.
Ball in every bottle. Yeah, that would be a bit. Might be a bit much.
I think it's good. I mean, I really like it. I think it's Brian Cooper. Go ahead, please. That brought me back.
Hell of a drug. Okay. Especially IPA, white IPA. If you're in the app of the BJCP, they listed as 21H there, which isn't really a style, but there you go. Well, you can't see that. Anyway, very high fill again. In the aroma, get a spicy coriander-like impression with a medium-high estery quality. Orange mainly. Does have a Belgian yeast-derived phenolic at a medium level. It seemed clean. Hops are generally floral, light citrus, and I could be tucked into tropical, but medium low muted by the yeast, because hops just get covered up with that Belgian yeast character like crazy. So characterful and knocks them down a lot. So like it's like you have this. What's really fun is to try the same beer brewed with an American ale yeast versus the Belgian yeast, and it's such a different animal. I didn't get any DMS or diacetyl. So this one, the sample's particularly cold. The one I judged last night was a fair bit warmer, and I found that it becomes sharper late in the aroma. Like that phenolic kind of kicks in, it gets a little gnarlier. Appearance-wise, it's a semi-hazy, light gold-colored beer with a fine, persistent head. White in color, mostly finer bubbles with some larger ones. I would say it's about right for appearance. I couldn't take away anything there. Flavor-wise, here I get a bigger phenolic bite right up front. It's got a clove-like tendency, but also hints of plastic adhesive-like quality, almost smoky or electrical fire-like, medium low. Bitterness is medium low and restrained. The malt is actually nice and weedy. It comes through. Dry finish, a low tropical hop balance to yeast character. Gnarly Belgian ale ferment apparent. The phenolic stays high in the aftertaste. No really other off flavors other than the phenolic being really intense and twisting in a way that I don't know. It's hard to tell if it's from the intended yeast strain or something else got loose in here. But we'll talk about. Well, we'll find out, I guess. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium light bodied with a lightly biting astringency, a bit of warmth and tingle in the back of the throat. I think some of that's just from all the phenolic in there that's being kicked up by the yeast and such. A high carbonation. The beer seems a bit bigger than it should be, despite the kind of lightish body. It's not quite as refreshing as hoped. You want kind of the best of a wit beer with the best of an IPA, but this is just a little bit biting. Not just a little bit biting. It's a biting. It's a kind of an attack on the mouthfeel there. So I knocked it down a couple points for mouthfeel. Overall, this is a big and characterful white IPA with a lot going on in the flavor. I guess to me, backing off that wild phenolic and or spice, which we could talk about, would go a long way toward making it more refreshingly drinkable. Bring in a delicate wit beer like aspect and keep the ferment as happy as you can. Perhaps even consider blending American and Belgian yeast strains or something, or some other way to make that yeast just less aggressive and attacking to the tongue. Everything's kind of in the way of the flavor. But that said, the flavors that are there are pretty good. I guess it just lands in the almost like you could go to upper end of good or lower end of very good. I landed at the lowest end of very good at a 30. So it doesn't have any big faults. It's mostly just that phenolic just twists a little gnarly. And I think I was probably imagining the plastic. I don't think it's just some of those phenolics. And sometimes you get a Belgian beer. There's a farmhouse Belgian beer that has some really crazy wild phenolics. I'm really curious what yeast was used in this and how we got here and why we're tasting this and talking about it. And now the cocaine's kicking in. Okay. I'll let Brian talk.
Yeah. All right, Shark.
White Lines IPA. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Colin, are you in a homebrew club?
I am. I'm a member of the Greenville Brew Stooges.
Excellent. You've talked about those guys before. Are you back to in-person meetings, or are you holding off for a little while?
We've kind of had some smaller groups. We haven't had like a big club meeting, but some of the more key members have gotten together.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing this beer. I really like white IPA, and their Anchorage Brewing probably about 10 years ago made a really great white IPA. And I've actually brewed one like maybe 9 or 10 years back when there was an article in Zymergy about it. And I thought, okay, this sounds pretty good. And in a way, I think it was partly what kicked off the idea of hazy IPA. Because as I recall, part of the quote white of the white IPA was the wheat. And there is the idea that you're going to take a Belgian wit beer and do some stuff to it and make an IPA, as opposed to a Belgian IPA, which is different. And I think this is maybe in some ways the hazy, JP.
Yeah. God bless.
So
Lucky us, huh?
yeah. So but it doesn't have to be exactly you read the style guidelines, it doesn't have to be exactly a Belgian wit. It uses the wit yeast or some of the typical ingredients, so the coriander, orange peel, and so forth. And people use different spices in their wit beer too. But having said that, I'll move on to judging this beer. Bottle inspection is fine. Everything is good. Aroma, there's no hop aroma. The initial aroma was coriander and malt for me. I got low phenol, and as it warmed, the amount of phenol really kind of went up. And I had a note that it's probably from yeast, because Belgian yeast throw a lot of phenol. That's partly why people use them, as they're extremely phenolic yeasts. I don't think there's anything in this beer that's infected. I think there's whatever yeast you used threw a lot of phenol, and I'll be curious what that was. I went back and I erased some parts of my score sheet because I initially didn't like the aroma at all, and I thought it was maybe too phenolic. And then I started to get like some orange zest, orange peel aroma. And maybe I talked myself into it. We'll find out later on if you actually used any orange zest or orange peel. And I thought, well, maybe that's giving me a higher perception of phenol. It's hard to kind of pick those out. So I got kind of a medium orange, gave it 9 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance, 3 out of 3. Pale straw color. It's a nice pale. It doesn't look like a wit beer. It's hazy, and the head is large and persistent. Flavor, the phenol was a little more of a knock in terms of the flavor for me. Initially, the flavor was that phenolic plastic with some esters, some orange peel. It's well attenuated. The balance to me was weirdly kind of between the bitterness and the yeast phenol in the finish. Hop flavor really wasn't noticeable, which this is supposed to be a white IPA. It doesn't mean you have to have flavor. And there was the bitterness, but it didn't get a lot of hop flavor in this beer. So it's 12 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 5 out of 5. Body's medium low. Carbonation's medium high. No warming, neither creamy nor astringent. Overall impression, 7 for a total of 36. And I opened up both of the bottles, one earlier to judge and one just now. And it's just the more I might actually knock this a little down more to like a 34 or a 32 upon having this warm up a little, because the phenol character is just so overwhelming. I think the yeast ends up covering up. I suspect there are some flavor and aroma hops in here, but that phenol that the yeast throws is just so intense that it covers up. You just don't have a chance to taste the hops or smell them. Next time, I might try a different yeast, a more neutral yeast, and keep the wit beer ingredients, or try a different wit beer yeast, because I'm not sure this one's doing you a lot of favors. I mean, the phenol ends up, it's not bad, but it just seems like it covers up everything else in here that you want to have be in here. So with that said, I do appreciate you sharing. I haven't had a white IPA for a while, and I look forward to hearing about it.
I don't think we've had a white IPA on the show ever.
I think you're right.
Did you score it, Shar? Did I
Oh,
miss it?
sorry. 36 out of 50.
36, he said, yeah.
Yeah,
would you-
real fast before we get to call and figure out about the beer. Yeah, I mean it is a weird mix of like very bright lemony, almost like a lemon juice. It's very tart, and phenolic at the same time, which is odd. Like you got that wit beer saison character that I always consider like a glue stick, like a paste, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just like an inherent ester in the whatever, but that's what I get out of this. But there's a very bright lemony quality, not even citrus, just like pow, just lemon.
I get that, yeah.
And then without the yeah, let me drink it again. And then it's very bitter, and I don't want to say thin. I mean, maybe the bitterness sort of hides some of the malt because there's really nothing there. So it's almost like 3 beers in one. It's a little disjointed and dry and bitter and phenol-y. So I don't know. Anyway, that's my interpretation of it. I would give it a 34. Colin,
I guess it also seems to be missing kind of that bitter orange peel that you would have in a wit beer, and that can, in these beers it can get covered up by the hops too. But I don't get that nice the however you say it, curacao orange.
sweet.
Like,
It needs a little
peel.
sweetness to it.
Giving a
I
little
think it's
twinge
too
of sweetness.
bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's too bitter. But Colin, let's talk about you. It's about you, not my awesome ideas. What?
So the story with this beer is kind of funny. So I had a big birthday a couple months ago, and about 6 or 7 weeks before then, my wife's like, "So how much homebrew do you have right now?" And I literally ran out for like the first time ever, and she's like, "You need to brew as much beer as possible immediately."
That's
So-
a good wife.
Yes, exactly. And so I had bought the Omega Sundew yeast. So that yeast, they basically took a Belgian yeast and gene spliced out the POF gene. So it's not supposed to produce phenol. So it's a Belgian yeast that's just supposed to like strawberries and pears and that kind of thing, those kind of esters.
Oh.
So I had brewed a beer with that and then basically collected all the blow off and had the yeast in basically a little mason jar sealed. And that is the only yeast I had to throw in a beer. So I was like, well, I'll just toss it in and see what happens. So I don't know if it got some wild stuff in it from the blow off, or if for some reason the second generation decided to throw phenol. I'm not
or
sure
if their
where that came
genetic
from.
engineering is not as good as they think it is.
So the first batch I brewed was weird. That tartness you talked about, it had a lot of that tartness. Like I used like Barbe Rouge, which to me has a very like strawberry gummy kind of thing, and it was like cherry pie filling. So it had that kind of tart red fruit kind of thing. So I think
So a
that
lot of
tartness
fruit
has
here.
come
Yeah,
from
for
yeast.
sure. And tartness, yeah, that's
yeah, it is
interesting.
very tart. That's wild.
So that yeast throws a lot of tartness. So I don't know. But the reason I chose white IPA is because it's phenolic as all get out. And I thought I'd get a few more points because you can have phenol in white IPA.
Game in the system. All right. Colin's here auditing his beers.
Yes.
How can I make this to be a different outcome than the reality?
So did you do any orange peel in the beer?
Nope.
Or no, it's not. Yeah, I
Nope.
didn't get any orange peel at all. It was just like, well, I could imagine coriander in all these phenolics, but I don't think it doesn't seem like, I think I was imagining that too. Yeah, it's just crazy. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wow.
The hops I used, so I basically kind of brewed it as a hazy IPA, and then it was phenolic, so I called it a white. Basically, what it boils down to.
That's a good way to go. Just call it what it is.
Yep. You guys want the recipe?
Yep.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
So water is kind of my standard IPA. So 150 sulfate, 50 chloride, and then whatever the calcium comes out to be. Mash pH of 5.5. Malt bill. So it was 11 pounds of floor malted Bohemian Pilsner, and then 3/4 pound of flaked wheat. It's a 5-gallon batch. And then, so like I said, the Omega Sundew, this was a second generation. I didn't control pitch rate. It's just whatever I got from the blow off on the previous beer. And then pitched at 68, let it ride till it hit 75, and then held it there till it was done. Original gravity was 52, final gravity was 6. So that's like 88% attenuation. So it went to town for sure.
Wow, that's pretty good.
It's dry.
Yeah.
It's dry.
Yeah, man, for
Yeah.
sure.
So those Belgian yeasts tend to like to ferment a lot.
Well, are you going to do this again, Colin?
No.
Yeah.
We
Did
can
you
tell you
learn-
how to improve.
Did you
this.
learn anything from this?
Yes, that yeast is fun to play with. I mean, it didn't do anything like I expected it to do, even on the first generation. So again, I don't.
Real question is, where is all that phenol coming from?
Correct.
That's insane. Oh my god.
So I don't know if it, for some reason, it mutated and started throwing phenol again, or I got some wild yeast in my pitch, or I have no idea.
You don't have a CRISPR in the back and you splice that gene back by accident?
No. Hot Bill, do you guys want that too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So at 60 minutes, I did about 3/4 of an ounce of Magnum for 27 IBUs. And then at 20 minutes, I did 0.6 ounces of Denali and 1 ounce of Laurel. And then my hop stand, same procedure as the last one. So about 180 degrees for 20 minutes with a circulator, 1.5 ounces of Denali, 1.5 ounces of Laurel, and then 1 ounce of Nelson Sauvon. And then dry hop into keg, 1.5 ounces Denali, 1.5 ounces of Laurel, and 1 ounce of Nelson, 50 IBUs. So it's about a 1-to-1 ratio.
That Nelson could be what's throwing out some of that kind of lemoniness in there.
Yeah, it could
I
be.
like Nelson.
Yeah.
Laurel gets pretty lemony too.
Yeah.
True. All
So-
right. Well, no, sorry, Colin, go ahead.
Denali is pretty pineapple-y, and you eat like pineapple, it kind of has that spicy, almost phenolic kind of thing to me as well. So one of the reasons I sent it, I didn't know, like, even before right around the time I sent, I couldn't decide if that was just really, really spicy hop or actual phenol. And I really do think it's phenol. I agree with you guys, but I don't know. It kind of reminds me of eating pineapple a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does have an acidic bite too. So the tartness with that
Lemon
twist,
afterwards sort of
tropical.
does yeah,
Yeah.
I get that for sure. All right.
come up
Well,
with an
is that it?
even-
I don't want to cut you off anymore, Colin.
No, you're good.
Second time I've interrupted you, so
I just thought it'd be a fun beer to send and talk about. I didn't really
It is.
expect it to do all that well. Actually did better than I was expecting. So.
absolutely.
You
All
could
right.
call
Well,
it a
then
fruit beer. Maybe
There
it's
you go.
pineapple something.
Yeah, there you
man,
go.
for Sure. All
Pineapple.
right, Colin. Thanks
surprise.
again, man.
All
Appreciate
right, take care, guys.
it. All right.
Thanks,
Send us
Colin.
more beer sometime. Cheers.
Later, man.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with Nate. And Nate has a beer. I don't know what it is, but we're going to drink it and it's going to be a lot of good time. Friend zone time friend. Yep, we're going to friend zone Nate. And then maybe we'll bring him into a polycule later. We don't know. Anyway, this is Dr. Homebrew. We'll be back right after this. All right, thanks for sticking around, everyone. We are joined by Nate. Nate, welcome back to the show, dude.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Another repeat offender.
Yeah. You were saying during the break that you had tornado or hurricane or whatever they are. Big,
Yeah, no,
big wind.
no hurricane.
Big mad wind over there.
Arcnado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mad wind, no hurricanes make it to the Midwest here, fortunately. So
Well,
There was a
look,
Sharknado, Brian said.
I was hoping for just something to change it up over there. But no, but like 40 minutes ago, you had like the air raid sirens.
yeah, exactly. Yep. Some to the north and then some to the south. Yep, exactly.
God, I
Wow.
hate that so much.
That's rough. Hopefully hopefully everyone's safe, man. And I
Everything's
expect you, by
quiet
the
for
way, if
sure.
it happens, you're staying on this phone call until the internet cuts out. I don't care if your roof goes. You're here.
It'd be
That was
like
the
one of those-
agreement.
Yeah, the news reporters is like hanging on, like, oh, it's a little windy out
We have a
here."
local man on a podcast currently. The National Guard is evacuating his entire family, but he's holding on, screaming something about getting a high score. Back to you, Chet. All right. Anyway, Nate, what beer did you send us, man?
So I said it in an American Amber Ale.
Ooh. All right. I love it. We had one on the last show too. Again, not a
Yeah, I saw
style
that.
we see, but that's becoming a more common style, I think, in the last year. We've been getting a few of them on the show. I've been getting them on the session a little bit too. So I think the Amber Ale is maybe the next beer to sort of rise from the ashes, a lot like the lager has. I'm excited about that. Yeah. All right, Brian Shar. Why don't you start us off?
I was you were excited about that, and I was just feeling that excitement, and you
Yeah.
could just tell by the electricity in the air here in our distributed studios. So, Nate, thanks for sharing. You've been on the show before, and I've asked you this question, but for folks that maybe haven't heard you, are you in a homebrew club?
Yes, I am. I'm part of the Rapid River Mash Masters here in central Wisconsin.
The Rapid River Mash Masters. Maybe someday when we're like traveling and doing homebrew con and stuff again, we'll get a chance to meet you guys in person. That'd be pretty nice. So, aroma, 8 out of 12. First impression I got was a citrus tangerine hop aroma at a medium level. I got sort of some additional piney, resiny notes as it warms. Low maltiness, which was kind of a surprise for the amber. And I'm going back to the sample that I opened about 4 hours ago when it was 95 in here. So it's definitely warmed. So I get some maltiness, but not, it's still at what I would call at a low level. Appearance 3 out of 3. This beer is crystal clear, even through a big sample. It's a light amber, dark gold on the lighter side of the range for an amber, but I think it's in the range. And it's always so hard to tell because without a standard sample size, this is like the same beer and two different things. And okay, these do look pretty much the same, but unless you've got a standardized backdrop and standardized sample size and standardized lighting, it's almost impossible to tell what the real color of something is. To me, the guidelines SRM is more of ballpark. So if you've got a stout that is like a pale straw, like, hey, hold on a second there, buddy. That's maybe an issue. But unless you're way off, I don't really. I think it's inappropriate in competition to be trying to measure SRM because you're never going to do it. Never going to do it properly. Flavor, first impression is citrus orange hop flavor at a medium level, followed by a high hop bitterness. Malt flavor is low. Really wasn't getting the hallmark caramel malt of the amber ale style in the aroma or in the flavor. It's well attenuated. The finish is long and balanced. Give it 10 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Body's medium. Carbonation's medium. No warming. Wouldn't call it creamy or astringent. And for overall impression, I gave it a 5 for a total score of 31, which is very good. I can't pick out any technical faults in this beer. I don't think there's any off flavors. I don't think there's any problems in your process. I don't see, there's nothing bad about it. But I think where it's missing the mark is recipe formulation. To me, the hop bitterness was more like an IPA than an APA, and an amber ale ought to have lower bitterness than an American pale ale. Not by much, but it's in the ballpark. And I also feel like it's missing the caramel malt or dark malt that really is the hallmark of the style that sets it apart from a pale ale. You don't have to have caramel malt. You don't have to load it up, but there needs to be some sort of dark malt character. And I wonder, because this beer, I'll be curious if we get to your recipe to hear about this. This beer is so well attenuated. It may be that you had a lot of caramel malt in there somewhere at one point, but it may have just attenuated all the way out. I don't know. I would adjust. What I would do next time, aside from the yeast, if it turns out the yeast is maybe too attenuative, I would drop the hop bitterness a little and maybe bring up the caramel / crystal malt a little in turn. So again, 31 out of 50. That's very good. Thank you for sharing. And now let's turn it over to Brian.
All right, Cooper, let's hear it.
Okay, Brian. I'm ready to take over here. The beer, I didn't check the fill on this one. Had a lowish fill, kind of like a centimeter above the shoulder of the bottle. Opened up with a nice hiss though. You can't really knock down points for fill, but I don't know. You might just try to get it kind of a little higher up in the neck for judging. I should have checked this bottle too, but actually part of it's covered up with tape too, so I might not have seen it anyhow. I digress. Medium low citrusy hop note in the nose with a light resiny quality. Pleasant malt is base with light biscuit, faint toastiness. There's really not much carameliness to speak of here. The esters are bright apple pear at a medium low level. Very clean, no DMS or diacetyl. And I found that the foam had some really nice lacing on it too on the sample. Just looks great. I couldn't not give it 3 out of 3 points for appearance. It's brilliantly clear, nicely done there. But yeah. Flavor wise, clean flavors of citrusy hop, kind of a medium level there, and faint resin combined with a pleasant but low maltiness with mostly kind of a biscuity and base malt quality. There is a general amberiness here, but I don't know if that really qualifies as a flavor. I probably shouldn't have even written that word, but it's just there.
Amberiness.
Amberiness, low bitterness. I think if I had to talk myself into any carameliness, I'd just be imagining it. But it is kind of a defining quality of the beer. Although, in the guidelines, it does say, like, all right, in the flavor, it says usually with a moderate, or in the aroma, I'm sorry, usually with a moderate caramel character. And in the flavor, it says malt flavors are moderate to strong and usually show an initial malty sweetness followed by a moderate caramel flavor. So the word usually is in there, and sometimes other character malts in lesser amounts. So, but I find it hard to imagine an amber ale without any caramelly flavors to it whatsoever. So, I could be talked into a tiny bit of carameliness, but it's just not prominent enough to really say, wow, that's a little caramelly, or that's even a tiny bit caramelly. Anyway, I digress again. It's fairly even balance, but the hop wins just slightly to me. Super clean ale fermentation, low esters, finishes nice and dry, maybe a little too dry, with hops and some malt in the aftertaste. Body-wise, it's medium light bodied with a medium high carbonation, faint carbonic bite. Prevents the smoothness from kind of shining through. No obvious astringency, but just a bit of a bite from either carbon dioxide or some combination of CO2 and a little alcohol in there. There is some alcohol noted, just not too. It's not really warming, just a little bit of like, okay, there's, it's not wimpy. And maybe it shines through a little more with just being so dry. The beer is not creamy. I wouldn't call it anything like that. I really like this beer. It's an enjoyable beer, and it's like a lightly hopped IPA almost to me. It doesn't scream amber ale. Kind of lacks the depth of maltiness that I would desire for an American amber. Has great hop character that I really think blends well with the malt that's there. I think some added sweetness in the finish could accent that and make it start to scream amber ale. The slight hint of caramel that I imagined was there, it needs some friends. It needs more, but don't go crazy. I wouldn't just like, okay, I'm gonna dump in a half a pound of Crystal 60 and here we go, but just add a little bit at a time, and it's a really nice beer to start with. And it's cleanly brewed. It's just out of balance for this style. So I would start by doing that, add a little more caramel, but also back off the carbon dioxide just a bit. And it's kind of smooth out some of the flavors and make it the mouthfeel just a little more smooth. I landed at a 33. I really liked the beer. I wanted to score it higher, but it's just not, it needs, it needs a little more to get into a little better into the style. There's really no flaws, so I couldn't really push it down into the good only good territory. I'd say it's very good. Just needs a little recipe work, really. Their process seems fine. You're drying it out quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to hear the recipe and hear where you landed on your gravities and what you did with your yeast and what
Yeah.
how much caramel malt there really is in there. There's probably a ton of it, and we're just missing it altogether. But
It's
I don't know.
95% caramel malt. Yes.
It's an all caramel malt beer, guys.
Right.
Mm,
Well, 1 grain of Turo for conversion. Go ahead, Nate.
exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for the feedback, guys. And as I'm tasting here, I'm picking up a fair amount of caramel. Maybe that's just my taste, but I had a couple of Irish Reds earlier, so I haven't been, saturated with hops here lately. But and maybe it's just bottle variation too, or maybe it's a sensitivity thing. But
This is
Yeah, from a
also our fourth beer of the night, so our palates are a little
Mm.
But yeah.
yeah. So from a recipe standpoint, so I had 10 pounds of just two-row or brewer's malt basically, and then I had a half a pound of caramel 80 in there, which to me that's
The
that's
80.
yeah, and went up all up
Wow.
because I was trying to drive that red color and or amber color and get that malt
Yeah.
characteristic.
Like half a pound is not a lot, but 80 is a lot.
Half
Yeah.
a pound of 80, I think, is a lot,
But
but
the-
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the
what I mean. Half
80
a pound in and of itself of any crystal malt isn't like out of the realm, but the 80 is, yeah.
But
I
it
get
can
it.
start going with the 80, you're getting towards like more the 120 and the special B kind of flavors with like that raisiny fruitiness almost,
Yeah, I think it would highlight the toasty, roasty caramel that I'm getting out of this.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's
Okay.
also one dimensional too. That 80 is like that's it.
Continue, please.
sure. So the rest of it, so that caramel 80, so about half pound, so it ends up being about 4%. Had another about 4% of Carapils, another 4% of Red X, so that Best Malts Red X just provides, I think it's like an 11 or 12 Levabond. It's just, I think it tries to just accentuate those red notes and kind of get some red hues into it.
Color,
And then I did a late addition of about 4% total. So 3 ounces of pale chocolate and 3 ounces of your favorite Special B late in the mash. So before I
That's
did
about as much Special B as you ought to ever use. So that's good restrained hand.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys didn't pick up on too much raisiny notes there, because I was ready to get a beating for that. So I didn't hear that. So I was kind of happy, but just trying to bring some of the color and a little bit of the flavor without bringing a whole lot. But by the sounds of it, maybe I could have brought in a little more of that pale chocolate or added it earlier to bring in some of those toasty notes and maybe a little more color than what's being observed here today.
I'll always love a pale chocolate, dude. Heavy-handed.
Chocolate is fun, yeah.
It's great. I love it.
I do too. I think it adds a lot to a lot of different styles, and I used it on that my Irish Red as well. I think it adds a nice compliment there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Why not some 40 or 60 L crystals in there though, to, like kind of the middle.
Yeah, Nate, you dingus.
I-
the middle crystals.
I thought that half a pound of 80 was going to be too much, so I thought that was going to be sufficient, and just the caramel's not showing through. But you guys definitely picked up that it seems drier. And when I was planning this batch out, I worked through some brewing software there, and it planned to be at 1014, 1015, and for whatever reason, this got down to a 1008. So definitely a little
Wow.
drier, and I think you
Yeah.
guys are picking up on that.
Very dry.
And I think
It's really well
yeah.
attenuated.
That might be part too of what's pulling away from the caramel that is there. It's just
Yes.
so dry that you don't have the sweetness accenting the carameliness, and your taste buds are just used to having that there with it. But the 80 is going to give you a lot of color and some, towards some richer, like not roasty or chocolatey, but some like dark kind of like
Stone fruit almost, or
maybe a little, yeah, stone fruit, but not just the warm caramel of a 60 or the light caramel of a 40.
You know
more
what
than
it
a
is?
honey like of a 20.
It's sort of like baker's chocolate or like a bitter chocolate, where sometimes you get like the high cacao percentage chocolate and it almost doesn't taste chocolatey, but it's that top 20%. Like if you look at the flavors, like whatever on a chart, it's that top 20% that's not bitter, but it's sharp tasting and it's almost astringent. but not in the stringent in the way that we mean it in a beer. And I know that none of this is making any sense to anybody with half a brain. But
I
that-
agree with this analogy.
Please continue.
it's that little tiny bit of like, it's just sort of, that just it drives it's like a tacky thing that just drives. Maybe it's the 80. It's that I would go like 15 and 40.
Oh, we don't know 15 hour okay.
15 and a 40. I would do a blend. With caramel malts, you want to do a blend, I think. A crystal malts, you want to get the best of both worlds. You want to get the rounder, softer notes of the lower crystals, but you want to get that raisiny caramel crystal malt aspect of the 40. That's why the British crystals are so good, because you get like a 50, 60. It's a range, and you look at the grains, and some are darker and some are lighter, and it sort of like does that for you too.
Yeah,
I think maybe the intention was to bring some of that in with the carapils, but really the carapils isn't going to bring in that much caramelly flavors at all. It's just
not at all.
It's a pale, technically caramelized malt, but it's done at such low temperatures, and it's just doesn't develop those colors and those flavors that come along with it.
Well, and especially if you're shooting, Nate, for the raisiny notes, anything you go above 80 or 80 and above, I think this is what you get, where it's more of the darker roasty grain flavors rather than the sweet aspects of the crystal malts, which is what you were trying to achieve. So I wouldn't go like 75 or low. I would go 75 or lower on a blend.
Sure, that makes sense. That's kind of what I was adding that extra carapils and just get the sweetness up there, trying to balance that out, because I thought I was going to get plenty of color out of that pale chocolate and the 80, but maybe I could have used a little more color.
Well, I think your color's fine. I mean, maybe like a little bit, but I think the other problem is half a pound of 80. That's too much 80. You could use 80. I'm not saying never use 80 or never use 120. I'm sort of going to walk that back a little bit, but half a pound of one crystal like that's too much. And then you get overdeveloped flavors like that, and you sort of miss what you're trying to put in the first place, because it does have all these extra things hanging on the back of it.
You can keep the
That's
80,
fair.
just go do a quarter pound and a quarter pound of the 60, quarter of the 40, quarter of the 20 or something. Just go broad spectrum and try that. Get all the flavors of the rainbow. I don't know.
Yeah, pick 2, maybe 3, and just blend them up.
Yeah,
Sure.
you maybe don't want kitchen sink either.
Yeah.
But
In times like this, I'm always reminded of the Colin Kaminsky's 100 grain recipe,
Oh, yeah.
where he would take all of his grains and the percentages that they're in. So like if he had 80% two-row, he would count out 80 individual grains of the two-row malt, and then do all the way till he had 100 grains, and then he would put them all in his mouth at the same time, chew them up, and swish them around in the spit so the starch is sort of converted and you get a little sweetness. And he's like, it's not perfect. It's not going to taste like exactly like the beer, obviously, but it's a good representation of the way the wort is probably going to taste in the mash. And it's a good way for you to check the balance of if you have too much of this or too much of that. You could try that. See if that helps in this sort of, you're trying to dial a thing in. Like a pretty significant amount of flavor that might help you.
Sure, good thoughts there, JP. Appreciate your feedback.
Yeah,
For
we thought it was a good thought. Yeah.
for the attenuation, I'm not sure why it took off so much. It was just a 1056 smack pack. I pulled it the fridge the night before and wound up smacking it in the morning before I started the brew day. So no starter, didn't go crazy on the amount of yeast there, but it must just the right conditions there and took off. So, or maybe I might have been a touch warm when I pitched it. So that might be part of it too. Maybe
You're
just
too good. You're too good of a home brewer.
It fermented fine. So
Yeah.
sure.
Nate, questions?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I appreciate the feedback there, and I know you guys talked about like the hop notes there, and that's one thing I like to try to push towards an APA almost with my amber ale. Just I like that hop backbone, with it. So I had an ounce of Cascade at 60 minutes. So it just all Cascade and Centennial. I did a half ounce of Cascade at 8 minutes, and then Centennial at 5.3, and basically flame out. So.
I really liked the classic quality of the hops, just citrus and a little resin, real nice, and it was at a level that I liked. It was like pushing towards, like you said, kind of that APA kind of territory.
Real nice.
I liked it.
Yeah,
All right.
trying to keep it to the American style there with the
I
Cascade
mean,
and Centennial.
yeah, you could have just pushed the hops up a little bit more and pulled back those crystal malts, and this would be a really nice pale ale or IPA, even.
Yeah.
Especially being so dry, it does almost reflect APA or IPA kind of territory. So yeah, I don't know, controlling that dryness, you can't. It's hard to just stop your fermentation. What did you mash at with it?
So I was mashing at one. It looks like 155 is what I had set at. So I had an all-in-one. This is brewed in the winter here, so I kind of an
Yeah.
all-in-one that I work in the garage. And 155 again, I didn't expect that to get all the way down to 1008 there. So I mean, maybe the temperature was off a little bit. Maybe I was, got closer to the low 150s. Maybe I'm just kind of curious on that, but.
It should be fine. It is always a good idea to calibrate your thermometers when if you ever have a weird thing like this, or just anytime. But just make sure you're using a good thermometer or calibrate it if it's calibratable, and make sure you're in the right territory for that.
Yeah, I'll kind of check my water too. I don't wonder if I've got, I'll double check and see what sulfates I had in there, because I think that kind of tends to dry beers out. So maybe there was too much of that in there and not enough chlorides in the water there to maybe add a little more malty backbone or kind of balance that out.
Yeah, the chlorides would add a little impression of sweetness, but it's not gonna, with it being 1008, it's not gonna take away the dryness. It might accent the malt a little more, but it's not gonna suddenly turn it into a sweet beer at all. But yeah,
Sure.
it's really enjoyable for what it is. I really liked the beer. So as a
It's good.
whatever this is, it's really good. It's
It's
just
a
not
thing.
a certain defined
It's a thing.
style.
What's the ABV on it?
So it wound up being a 6.2 because the original gravity was a 1055, and getting all the way down to a 1008 there, it came out at a 6.2 roughly.
Yeah, you can feel it a little bit. You definitely get a little alcohol, and I like that too.
Yeah. You can go either way. You can try like just increasing everything and go for like an American strong ale too. I mean, it has a good malty, thing. It could do with a little complexity either way, either lower gravity or higher gravity, but that's a good jumping off point for sure.
Well, that's what I wonder too, if maybe I just take that base malt of the two row. So 10. So I mean, I was at 11, almost 12 pounds of total grist there. So maybe if I back that 10 pounds of the pale malt and bring that down, maybe it lets those crystal malts shine a little more too in the beer, gives it a little more color, gives it a little more of that maltiness, and that lets those caramel malts show through and do more of a blend like JP suggested with 40s and 20s and maybe some 60 in there as well.
Yeah, I would do both of those things, and I think it'll be 20% different for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
For sharing it and
Cool.
sending us all this beer, and we've definitely enjoyed having you on the show. And
Yeah.
stay safe there. Keep your family safe, and hope all your friends and everybody in the area there is okay. But yeah, this climate change. Anyway.
Yeah, it's summer. Some of it's to be
It's a bitch.
expected. So yep.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah,
Yeah, thanks for the beer, Nate.
sure.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, it's always good talking with you guys, and I always appreciate your feedback, and it's nice being on the show. So appreciate it.
Oh yeah, and come back anytime, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
brother.
Have a good night. Take it
All
easy.
Better Nate.
Good night. Bye.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, everybody, and we'll be right back here on Dr. Homebrew. Stay with us. Hey, everybody. We're wrapping it up here on Dr. Homebrew. I want to thank our guests, Nate and Colin, for sending us beers. If you want to be as cool as Nate and Colin are, send an email to brian@thebrewingnetwork.com. That is thebrewingnetwork.com. Brian at, but not in that order. And he will get back to you in time, and we will get your beers on the show. We are looking for beer. We're looking for cider. We're looking for mead. We're looking for wine. We're looking for hard cider. We're looking for kombucha. I will
Sake.
fucking
Let's
drink
not forget
sake.
sake.
Sake. What else can you ferment? Maple syrup? Is maple syrup fermented? I don't know. Cocoa. Sauerkraut, cocoa beans. If you wanted to send us your fermented cocoa beans, we'll do that too. I don't care. Do whatever you want.
Just it does take a while to be as cool as Nate and Colin, because they've sent us a mass amount of beer and shipped it across
for sure.
many
Yeah, they
time
really
zones
have.
to be here with us, and stayed up late multiple times with
Multiple
us,
times.
and we appreciate that. So, but if you're a hypochondriac like them, you can definitely do that. And I don't know.
I wish we had
Well,
something for you.
We'll see them up on the stage somewhere, and they'll be just laughing at everybody else. I don't know.
That's right.
Mm,
We
I'm telling
are the
you,
champions.
if they rebrew for our specs and they enter that competition, we had better be listed as co-brewers. I'm telling you.
That's what I'm
That's how we're
hoping.
racking it up. That's how we're
I get
racking
to-
the medals.
Brew without brewing, like just everybody who brews based on my advice.
It's
I
my
brewed with
favorite.
you.
Is that how we get our Ninkasi award, JP?
Yes, that is exactly how we're the most awarded non-home brewers ever.
Right. Everybody will
Mm.
hate us again and all that. So yeah. Oh, the damn Brewing Network always.
That was a fun time to be a part of, where everyone was like, "Oh my god, these people are following the rules. That sucks.
It's the homebrew
I
club
remember that.
for
Let's change the
Everybody-
rules so no one can have fun, and then make it more complicated for people to have fun, because that's what we're all about.
fun is complicated.
Fun is complicated. That's why there are condoms, Brian. Okay. I don't know. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We are back next month with 2 brand new Dr. Homebrew shows. But until then, if you want to stay tuned to the Brewing Network, we have sessions coming up. We have 2 Brew Strongs being released next week or next month as well. And there are 2 already in place. The boys talked to Fal Allen from Anderson Valley Brewing Company all
Oh,
about
nice.
GOSA. And then they convinced Fal to stay on for a question and answer session. So that was a good
Oh,
time
sweet.
talking to those guys too. And then the shows before that we dropped were about the history of lager brewing in America. And I forget the gentleman's name. Lynn. Yeah, I forget. Anyway, good dude, good conversation. That was a lot of fun. 2 episodes on that. So if you're any sort of lager head or just beer historian buff sort of in general, those are good shows for you.
Here's the deal, though. The Brewing Network has been generating content for decades now. This is a tiny drop in the bucket. If you just like tuned into this is the latest podcast about home brewing or whatever, there's, we've had, co-hosts before there was a Brian too. There was a Keith guy, and there was my good friend Lee, who has departed the planet.
It was
But
a lead. Yeah.
listen to those early episodes and have some fun, like going kind of time traveling and early session episodes, and just go crazy.
Not too early though, I will say.
Not too early.
We
Just
were, for radio in 2005 to 2012, we were sort of stupid.
enjoy the
But there's a lot-
travel. JP becoming more mature.
A man. Yeah,
through the
we
ages.
were dumb and we said dumb shit, but we were trying to be sensational, and that's just sort of what we were trying to do. And we don't do that anymore, and that's okay because people grow and they learn and they understand. But I will say there is no beer outlet at all before or since that has put out more influential content than the Brewing Network. I will say
None
that
whatsoever. None at all.
wholeheartedly. All these people who came after us, they're just doing what we did. They're taking what we have said to other people and regurgitating it. This is us. The Brewing Network is 100%. That should be a t-shirt. The Brewing Network has influenced your favorite brewery. It
That's
has.
right.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to say.
Probably.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you later.